All right, I see people are coming. That's great. Time to start, I believe. It is just on time. We are 2 minutes late, but let's kick it off, Oxana. Welcome, everyone. This is another Constellation webinar here. Today, we are going to talk about do's and don'ts in data quality. Basically, we would like to give the best practices based on our previous experience and current experience with Constellation. I am Kursat Hosel, the CEO and the co-founder of Konstellation. And I'm here, we'll be having this webinar, having chat, having discussions with Oxana, my co-founder and CTO of Konstellation. So a little bit about my background. My most recent corporate job before Konstellation was Disney Streaming. I used to work under data product management organization there. I did lots of big scales, data product launch maintenance, and mostly data quality stuff. And at the same time, I used to work at UC Berkeley at Haas Business School. As a guest lecturer, I did corporate strategy, data strategy, product management, and a couple of more elective courses. So I'm going to let Oxana to introduce herself first, and then we are going to jump into directly to data quality stuff.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Oxana, co-founder and CTO of Konstellation, and my background has been in data my whole career, over a decade of experience building and leading data teams. So the problems that we solve with Konstellation are very close to my heart. I have lived through them, and I'm excited of the discussion we're going to be having today. We're both based in Los Angeles, but we welcome everyone joining wherever you are. So yeah, let's dive in.
So I just want to give some heads up, maybe correction, maybe disclaimer, however you like to name it. You see, everywhere is Konstellation here. Just for your information, this is not a sales pitch. This is just our company's Zoom account. That's why we are seeing this. But we really want to make this webinar. It's all about giving some knowledge, giving some information to our audience. And today's topic is going to be data quality, and we have the experience with Konstellation, and we are going to try to explain how you should be building data quality practices from scratch, from ground zero. And we are also going to touch base on how to maintain it and how much to spend on it based on what, on your business parameters. So I think the best place to start is a little bit like everything else in data. Let's give the definition. What is data quality? Oxana, I'm going to ask you. So what is data quality? Why do we need high data quality?
Yeah. So data quality is ensuring that the data that you are producing and using in your organization for the various use cases that it's been used, it is reliable, consistent, it's accurate, it's complete. And essentially the reason why it's important, it's because your organization is going to use this data either to make decisions or to improve their operational efficiency, or it could even be for compliance reasons and to understand what's happening in the business. And so if you don't have good quality in your data, then all these outcomes are not going to be at its best. So really, by having like good data quality can make or break your data strategy. And if you don't have it, it's almost like your return on investment on everything that is happening around data is not going to be as strong. So by ensuring good data quality, you make sure that everywhere where it's being used, you're going to get the best outcome possible.
Okay, that's great. That's great intro. So I think data quality, I just want to summarize in my mind. When we say data quality, you need proper data, accurate data, relevant, on time, fresh data if you really want to make informed decisions. So if you claim that you are a data-driven company, data-driven person, you need data. That means you are making your decisions based on data. But what if data is wrong or not complete? Your decisions unknowingly are going to be bad. Therefore, the high data quality is required in order to make sure those decisions are accurate, are correct.
Right. Or even in today's world, like if we're talking about AI and machine learning models, like you want to ensure that the data you're feeding to those models also makes sense and is reasonable. Otherwise, again, the outcomes are not going to be the best possible. So it really applies to all the various use cases that data has.
Yeah. And in 21st century, I think I don't want to convince, I don't feel like we should be trying to convince people about the importance of data. Well, everybody has to be data-driven company, because we've seen this. Like, if you look at there's a movie, Moneyball, a Billy Baines book based on Billy Baines' book.
Yeah.
You might remember better, Brad Pitt starring in that movie. It shows very clearly traditional decision making versus data-driven decision making. And it's an old movie, old book, actually. So data-driven decision making should be the natural stuff, natural thing, that as anybody should be doing that. It should be a commodity. And one step beyond of it, I think, where the society, the tech world moving forward, okay, I'm a data company, I need data, data is important, but how am I going to ensure I have the correct data and complete data, on time data? How am I going to rely on the data when I'm making those decisions? So we are talking about a little bit more about the quality of the data here. And let's dive a little bit on the best practices of ensuring the data quality. So we got this, okay, we have to be data driven and the data quality is important. This is what we want, but how are we going to do it? What are the best practices of ensuring high data quality?
Yeah, I'll start, and I think this is the most important. So if you leave this call today with something, this is what you should remember, and it's that to accomplish high data quality, you need to collaborate with the business user. So the data teams that are responsible of building the pipelines will not necessarily understand everything that like what means how to make something good quality. And to give you an example, like back in the day, like one of my previous experiences, like we were tasked with, okay, let's go and implement some quality checks and ensure that there was a data mart we were building. And so it's really hard if you're just, for you it's just tables and columns and like, okay, what is really the expectation? So this is about an exercise of sitting with the business user, whoever is going to use that data for either their day-to-day or making decisions, adjusting budgets, maybe targeting customers, like you name it really, but understanding the use cases from the people that are going to be close to, again, using this data, and unpacking how do we make this meet an expectation. And so it's not about, because it's not about 100% every column can never be, having some variance. It's really about making sure that this data is useful for the business in however way they're going to use it, and therefore this requires continuous engagement with the business. It's not something that someone standalone disconnected from the usage of this data can come up and accomplish. This is about a conversation, and it requires that engagement.
So you're saying before we start to get worried about the quality of data, we should make sure that what data, which part of the data should be high quality. What kind of data we are dealing with, and the main message here would be the data we need is actually the data that connects the bridge between the business and what we have, the infrastructure, the data engineering team. What do you put on the other side? If this side is business, because we are trying to understand the use cases, because we
Yeah,
don't collect data just for the sake of collecting data.
right.
We are going to use something, we are going to measure something, and it is supposed to come from the business. And where are we connecting to this business use cases? Back in where? The infrastructure, you mean?
It's like the data infrastructure, the data pipelines. Essentially, that's where the quality will need to be ensured. And I think that's a challenge of data quality. The people responsible for quality are really the data engineers or the, analytics engineers that are building these data pipelines. But the consumers are on the other end, who are, again, the ones that much closer understand the usage and what really matters and what would break, their report, or or what would land a bad decision if it's not happening. So it's connecting these two ends through those conversations to ensure that you understand what's the baseline for good quality.
Yeah. So I'm a visual person, so I'm going to put it on here on the map. I'm looking at as downstream the business, but you can also look at the left. So there is this paradigm, everybody talks about it, shift left, shift left, shift left. Where are we going to shift this left? How far left should we be shifting? And if you shift everything to left, what is going to remain on the right? What is your approach on that?
Yeah,
Where do you draw the line?
yeah, that's an interesting question. I think really there's been a lot of focus on shifting left, and while it is good and recommended to, enhance your quality from the beginning, the reality is, again, back to this bridge in your mental map, the users are on the far right. They're really the last, step on the right. And so the fact that you do a bunch of improvements and enhancements and quality assurance on the left does not guarantee that nothing else is going to happen until it reaches your use cases. So the reality is, the recommendation would be, it has to be across your whole pipeline from left to right. And even if you start on the left, you still have to do some assurance of the quality on the right, because otherwise, then the effort of everything you could have checked from the beginning might be lost if the end use case is gonna use bad or wrong data. So really, it has to be spread, and you have to ensure that in that last mile there is quality and assured. Otherwise, it's a lost effort,
Yeah.
everything you could have done on the left side.
So when we are concerned about data quality, we are taught, let's say what makes data poor quality, anomalies, the absence of data. So let's generalize it into data issues. So just because of we fix something, we identify, we remediate something on left side, it doesn't mean that down the road, when you are moving, when you are delivering the data, whatever your product, the data product, or whatever you are delivering as part of the data team to your business stakeholders, there is no guarantee that it's not going to get impacted with anything else. So everything can go wrong, anything can happen anytime. You fix it, and even after you fix it, when you are delivering on the way, the things can get ruined, can create some other anomalies. That's why you're saying that the data quality is a whole process from end to end. You have to start somewhere, of
Yeah.
course, but until you deliver, you are still responsible for high data quality.
Right.
But then let me ask you this: where do you define where is left, what is right? Let's talk a little bit about the definitions. Then what do you think about the definitions,
What do you mean?
like the data quality definitions? Are we going to uh, try to measure everything we are delivering, or the
Yeah.
what is the definition of the quality check?
Yeah,
Should
and I
we define
think that
everything and measure everything?
that would take me to my second recommendation of something to do. When you think of implementing data quality, you're really starting with a series of checks, rules, criteria that needs to be met in order for the data to look as expected. So for example, you have a customer table that has an email column, and if you're going to do, I don't know, customer targeting or marketing through that data, you will need that the email column always has a value, and it's a valid email with a proper format, and it's not blank. Otherwise, it's gonna make that, you know, data or potential customer useless, right? So I would say when you think of implementing quality, it's really about coming up with all these rules, checks, validations that need to be met to ensure that, you know, the data is looking good. And I think one problem that I see many times is that it's not about making this a rules game, about adding more and more checks, but really checking what really matters and what the business needs. So it's not about like, I'm not going to ensure better quality in my customer table if instead of having 3 checks, I'm going to have 300 checks. Like that doesn't necessarily guarantee anything. So it's not about here, it's not about quantity, but it's about the quality of the checks that are being implemented and ensuring that the what you are ensuring with that specific check has a benefit or assure something to the business in whatever way they're going to use that data. So that's the thing. And really it's about identifying key columns, key metrics. What is the most basic criteria that needs to be met to make this data useful? And again, it's not about covering everything and having all types of checks, but really checking what matters so that also the noise that, you know, these checks are going to generate some results every day. And so you don't want to have a crazy amount of noise on things that might not even be relevant. Like who cares if the, I don't know, the customer address is wrong? Maybe this is not relevant, right? So that's
So let me ask this then. Let's say I'm starting to set up this data infrastructure for my team. We are a small team, and I already acknowledge that data is important, data quality is important. I'm really willing to build something. And but it is like growing so big in my mind, and I say, oh my God, how am I going to implement all these checks all around? So make sure I catch the anomalies, the data issues on time, on the spot. And it says like, oh, I need 3,000 checks. I'm going to check this, I'm going to check that. So what you are saying is we don't need actually 3,000 checks, but so where is the line? Do I need 2 checks, 5 checks? How do you decide? Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, that's really the beauty of a good data quality implementation. Again, it goes back to understanding the use case. I cannot tell you it is 3 checks per table or 10 checks per table because it really depends on the complexity of the business logic that is generating your data. And again, the variety of use cases on that. Because if the same table is used for 10 different reasons or like in 10 different use cases, you need to really understand that so that you can come up with what those rules or expectations are to so that those use cases have good outcomes. So there's really it I mean it's impossible for me to say, you know, 3 is the magic number because it's
Yeah.
more of a case by case situation.
But would you feel comfortable to say that or recommend that to our audience? Um, Use cases is like network effects, like the telephone lines, right? There's this. If you have 2 nodes, you have one connection, you need one connection, and then if you have 3 nodes, you need 3 connections. So it goes exponentially. So can we correlate this with the number of tables versus the use cases? It's going to grow exponentially. Then the more tables, the more data assets we have, including the jobs, I don't know, maybe the information coming from the data catalog or orchestration tools and all sort of things. The more information, the more things that we need to check, we need to observe, the required checks, the regular monitoring tools needs to be growing exponentially. Then I feel like there will be some sort of automation, because if you, let's say you have 2 data engineers and you have 50 tables, I don't think you are going to automate anything. If you
Yeah.
think you can manager or a business owner, like the cost versus return. I think doing things manually is going to help in the beginning, much more efficient. But at some point, you have to switch to automation. So can you talk a little bit about this automation? Because building the pipeline, building the process and the best practices within the company, including the data culture, will be a must-have at some point. When you are one single person as a company, you don't need that. But when do you start to need it? When do you need to start to worry about how am I going to take this from 0 to 1 by automating everything?
Yeah, totally, absolutely. Like the smaller your environment, the less critical automation becomes, because you can probably get along with, again, manually sitting, understanding these use cases, coming up with the checks. I mean, there will be some basic automation like these, but like that you will start implementing these rules so that they run every day. I would say if your environment is small, like we're talking like less than 100 tables, you're probably fine getting along with like a more manual approach to data quality, because you will likely have a really good understanding of the data assets you're producing, who are your consumers, what are they using it for. So this is easy to manage. But the time this starts growing, it becomes much more harder to get the whole picture of everything that is happening, and that's where automation really becomes very helpful. And so some teams decide to automate from the beginning, even though they're small scale, because this enables you to grow your data usage and your data pipelines and everything without having to worry as much about data quality. Like you have a process in place. But some other companies, and this is a bit unfortunate, wait until it becomes a bit unmanageable to then sort of catch up. And so I think automation helps, because if you continue going manually, like for a longer time, data quality can feel like a never ending game where you're like always catching up and always
Yeah.
have to, because data usage grows more. And as you said, right, like network effects, once there's a data set that is helpful, imagine like I don't know, week over week sales with projections, and you have access to this information, the business is going to want to more and more leverage the data. And so it can get out of your hands very easily if you don't automate on
Okay.
time.
So I don't know if this term exists. If it doesn't, let me be the name father for that. We talked a lot about tech debt in the corporate world. Tech debt is something that you have to live with. In some cases, actually, having tech debt is good. But so we are talking about data quality debt if you
Yeah.
don't start on time. Because anyways, if you need backfill and you don't backfill, at some point, one stakeholder from out of nowhere, they're going to come and ask for it. Hey, there is this 2 weeks of data from 4 years ago is missing. I really need it for my, I don't know, quarterly report. And you never noticed that problem, and now you have to fix it. So, and we would say it like, I think data quality that because it's coming from out of nowhere and it's going to be injected into your roadmap. Now your entire planning is already screwed. So still, shouldn't we leave some slack for data quality that, or we should
I,
always try to keep it 0?
Yeah, I think the answer to this is to incorporate data quality as part of the development process. Like this is a continuous part of what you're doing, what you're building. The conversation, this needs to be part of the day-to-day conversation, and it's not something you leave behind, because again, it's very easy to accumulate this debt, using this term, and then it takes time to catch up. And so as a data team, there's going to be other initiatives like that actually deliver new data sets to unlock new use cases and add value. And so if you allow that debt to grow so much, you're always going to be, again, in this catch-up game. So really the key here is that data quality should be part of the dev life cycle. As columns get changed, metrics get defined, new tables get added. Data quality needs to be done at that time and not left behind.
Okay. So let me step back here a little bit. What I heard from you as the best practices when you are setting up your data quality processes or habits is one, you started with, hey, start with the business stakeholder, be the bridge between your data infrastructure and the real what matters on the
Right.
business questions. And the second one was define, don't make it the rule of the game of rules. Instead, make sure you are just checking the correcting whatever is necessary. And even if you filter out and you single out what matters to you, there will be lots of things because of the overwhelming the volume of the data. And that's why at some point you will need automation. And I don't think in 2024 it's going to take too long, because I remember you said 100 tables, and 100 tables is just very, very small
In the
in the
blink of an eye.
cloud
Yeah.
computing era, right? And if I follow you correctly on these three steps, what else can you add? Do you have any other best practices?
Yeah, I think I'd like to include the making it part of the development life cycle, right? And making it a continuous
Yeah, yeah,
conversation. And one thing I want to add there is the reality about, and I go back to the first point and why it's the most important to keep the conversation open, because even if you get that good understanding today of how the data is used, the reality is that can change at any time. And this is very common with data science teams. They're always exploring data assets and looking what else to include in their models. And so like you need to have that constant conversation so you are also up to date with the data use cases, and so that you can continue ensuring that data quality. Because it's not like you sit down, you define again the rules for your customer table, and then boom, it's done. Like the usage of that table is also going to evolve, and therefore your quality strategy or coverage is going to evolve with time. And then the one other thing I'll add to the what to do really is, every time there's a larger issue, you should have a post-mortem or discussion, like retrospect on what happened, what was the root cause, and in order to feed that learning into the process, the quality process, and continue improving. And it could be as easy as, oh, we were never checking that this column had to be greater than this other column, like we never had to check that, and you go and implement that check going forward. Or it could be something more bigger, like I didn't even know this table was being used for anything, because it's really, sometimes if you don't have the proper tooling, it's really hard to get that full visibility to the usage of your data, like who's
yeah,
using it, why are they using it. So it could be as, oh, I didn't know this was as critical, and now it's feeding an important report. And so like let's make it part of the strategy. So I think it's about continuous learning and making sure that you open the room for those discussions, and keep learning and adjusting. Again, it's not something you will get right from the beginning. The unfortunate reality is these issues are never gonna go fully away. There's always gonna be one thing or another. Like it's the nature of data, how
yeah,
quickly
yeah,
companies are evolving too with their data usage.
yeah, yeah. You mentioned um postmortem. I really like that because it's really important, like doing and reflecting a little bit. Even it might include the relationship between the team members. It's not only about the data, it's about the people who operate them, right? And I am curious, in postmortem, usually, in especially in the software development teams, it's the same as the data engineering teams. You talk about something happened, and you talk mostly about how to avoid next time. What if, how would you catch something didn't happen? I think it's a little bit like negative space, related to negative space. Like there is a table, nobody uses it. And I don't think there will be any postmortem about it, but even though it's not going to blow your business up, it is a data quality issue because there's like the cost, I don't know, the space, the storage, the cloud computing, but no one uses it. Um, are you worried about that? How do you just avoid from that?
Yeah, the reality is I'm not worried about it. I think there's many things that are gonna go wrong, but again, it's not a game of perfection. This is not about perfection, but ensuring that the impact is mitigated and is minimized. And
Yeah,
that's why if something fails, no one is using it, I shouldn't care. And like it's okay. It's not about us being perfect and producing the most perfect data quality data assets. Like, yes, it would be nice if everything was closer to perfect, but the reality is we wanna, focus on, sorry, I'm gonna say fix what matters, right? Like focus on what the business is using, because that's where your efforts should be targeted rather
yeah,
than trying
yeah,
to make everything perfect. You want to make sure that the most starting with the most critical assets have good coverage. You're catching things quickly, or preventing them if possible. But
yeah,
if something
yeah.
doesn't is not used, I wouldn't worry as much.
Yeah, I think that time is much more important than money these days. It's the conversion rate is changing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to inject a little bit of Constellation feature here. Like, let's say there are like a huge cost for because of the non-used tables. Constellation is able to detect that and cut the costs. But as you said, if it's not that important, I mean, if it's going to save you $10, which is going to cost your engineers half an hour, I don't
Yeah.
think that you need to fix
Yeah, it
that.
wouldn't matter.
Um, so yeah, that's right. Okay. With that, I like to step a little bit on the other side. These are, I don't know if you have anything else to add in terms of the best practices, how to stand up a data quality culture, pipeline processes.
I think that what we shared covers it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what are the pitfalls then? What are the common errors you've seen throughout your career in different companies, or
Yeah.
when you're engaging with your customers? What's going on?
Yeah, I think
What
that
is-
the most common is really when different teams or individuals go around data quality in their own way. And there's different definitions of what it means to do data quality and different understandings of what needs to be checked. Every team might have their own approach and might even be building their own tooling for, like, oh, an airflow operator, and it's going to work this way, and this other team is doing something different. And so addressing quality in silos is a problem itself. And I think that's the biggest pitfall. Like, you want to avoid siloed efforts around data quality. Make sure there's alignment, there's a baseline, good understanding, and make sure that everyone's doing similar things to address it. Yes, this still quality will be done by the experts in each domain. If we're talking about a data mesh architecture, like it makes sense that the people closer to the data and the business helps, or like is part of the process. But it's important, and that there's alignment and a common understanding of what it is to avoid these siloed efforts.
Okay. For our audience who is not very familiar with the data architecture, can you double tap on that part? Because when you start to talk about the siloed, you should avoid siloed approach. And then you also mentioned data mesh. To be honest, it was the first thing came to my mind when you said siloed, but it is not overlapping one-to-one, of course. But again, where is the line? You would like to create the domains, you would like to attend, empower the data mesh if it is appropriate, but no matter what, you would like to avoid the siloed approach. So
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about the data architecture and the practices on the business
Yeah.
side of them?
So, quick parentheses on data mesh. It's an architecture approach where the organization and the data practice is segmented into different domains. So you could think of some people, like a mini team is doing taking care of finance data, and another mini team is taking care of marketing data. And so like that way, you enable all these data practices to grow rather than having a centralized team just taking care of everything, which makes it hard as, you know, the use of data increases in organizations. But back to the how data quality fits here, even in a data mesh architecture, these are the things where you want to have some standardization for either the tooling or what a, you know, what data quality is, because as a data organization, you need to ensure a certain you want to ensure a certain level of reliability in every data asset you're producing. And so this is one of the things that, even though the implementation might look, you know, it's going to be happening in these groups, you still want to make sure the standards are across teams, there's communication, you have maybe squads with people from every domain talking about it, the tools are shared. If someone developed again an airflow operator, then you want to make sure that everyone uses it. If there's a tool that you're bringing in, everyone is using it. And so ensuring that there's some standardization.
Okay. So this a little bit on the big level, I think, how the teams interact with each other. Do you have any advice on individual level, like when you are working on data quality, you are building a pipeline, or you are setting up the custom monitors, or whatever you name it, a data engineer comes and worried about the data quality, and yet they are trying to build something. What are the pitfalls on the individual level? What would you advise the data scientists, data engineers, machine learning engineers here?
Yeah, the most common mistake I've seen and now we're talking about the actual implementation of these quality rules, is really getting caught up in thresholds. And what I mean by this is, as you're defining these checks, it's very easy to say, like, or to, you're looking at a column, and I'm looking at my sales column, for example, and I'm looking to define what good quality means in that column. And so it's very hard to know, okay, should this be greater than 10,000, or should it be this? And is a variance of 10% acceptable, or is a variance of 5% acceptable? And so really tuning in those thresholds and wanting it to be perfect is where a lot of teams spend a lot of time just to define that expectation. And I would say that's unnecessary. Just make sure you continuously learn from the patterns of your data, because no one will have the answer. Even if you talk with a business user, like whoever's, you know, responsible for the sales report, they're not going to know what's an expected variation. And like, when is when can it be considered an alert? When is it normal? And so really it's about learning about your data for either manually or through machine learning, and like making sure that those thresholds also get adjusted, because there's going to be regular like movements in your data that are expected, and you need to adjust rather than making noise out of everything.
Yeah, I think it goes back to your number one best practice advice, which is like going and checking with the business use cases. Because let's say you are implementing a custom check which is going to check the null percentage. 85% is fine for some businesses, for some use cases, but in some cases 99% is not okay. You have to be almost close to perfect, and you are trying so hard to move the needle from 99.4 to 99.5. And on the other hand, it's like 80% or 85%. It really doesn't matter, because of the nature of the business, the nature of the table, the frequency, or how static or dynamic is that table.
Yeah. And really, you know, back to that example, like going from 80 to 85 or 95 to 99, like even like my thing here is coming up with that number is something very difficult. Like, whoever you go to, no matter if they're the number one user of this data, and you tell them what's an acceptable, you know, error rate on this column or on this metric, no one has that answer. Like,
But that's where we bring the AI into picture at Constellation, don't we?
Yeah,
You are looking at the usage, you are looking at the historical data, user behavior, and the metrics usage, even with your UI interactions, you realize that, oh, this data is important. Well, there are levels of tagging that data as important, very critical. But I think that's where we get the help from AI.
yeah, definitely AI helps because it also adjusts and continuously learn. But if you don't have the luxury of AI, then it's
Yeah.
about, you know, choosing something and going with it rather than trying to perfect that number of, is it 80, is it 82, is it
Yeah,
83?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just want to open a parenthesis there because I don't want audience to get the wrong message here. At Constellation, we collect that kind of information, the data, the usage, and we feed into a machine learning model. And the AI is the part that spits out, interacts with the users and gives a recommendation about the solution. So it's a very common mistake in society today's world. Like everything is considered as AI, but there is actually very thick border between machine learning and AI. And at Constellation, we apply both of them. All right, cool. Thank you very much. What else? Would you like to add anything else?
I'll say, you know, data quality can be annoying, because of the amount of noise that, you know, checks and are going to generate, and you're checking for a lot of things. And again, it's really hard to keep the meat of what is important being highlighted. And I don't want to keep it a constellation
Yeah,
conversation, but this is also where we try to make that differentiation of highlighting the critical things versus not highlighting the ones that are might not be as critical. But I would say one thing to do if you're already spending time on data quality, call it implementing checks, coming up with expectations, automating a lot of things which will take time. Do not defer the actions whenever things happen. Like if something is alerting, go and take care of it. I have seen alerts that continue firing for 127 days, and people just snooze it, and we know this is okay. And like, instead of that, take 5 minutes, remove the rule if it doesn't
yeah,
make any more sense. You know, sometimes some teams will do threshold, so adjust the threshold if it's still not, if it's now not relevant. But like, again, this is all about making this ecosystem work better for the whole team in the future. So if you see something, do something. No, don't
yeah.
defer the actions.
Yeah. I just want to take it one step further. I think um, the noise, like false positive, false negative, and the alert fatigue is something real. But I don't think we should take it as, oh, this is the nature of the business. We have to deal with the alert fatigue. I think there are solutions out there. Definitely, like fix what matters, you prioritize properly, and then you know what to turn off in terms of alert. You know what to turn on when it comes to setting up the correct custom check
Yeah.
on the data that you really care about, your business really care about.
Yeah. Or even if you're setting up a dashboard, like a quality dashboard for your team, make sure that the information that is going to be displayed is actionable. Because I've also seen many times where there's dashboards that don't give you any information, just tell you these many things have failed. Okay, so what does this mean? What should
Yeah.
I do? So it again requires more time from the teams to start digging in and understanding what action needs to be taken. So however you're going to be displaying this information, make sure that there's a quick action item you're going to get, and like, you know, if something needs attention or not. As simple as that.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. Should we do quick demo or not? We shouldn't. No.
No,
Okay,
I
cool.
wanna I
That's
wanna
this.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to close with one little thing about data quality, which is this is not an overnight activity that you're gonna started today and tomorrow it's going to be great. It's really, you can compare this to, you know, bodybuilding or going to the gym. You're not going to lose the weight in one night, even if you do all the proper things in one day. This is something that requires continuous engagement, you know, putting in the work, making sure you're looking at the right things, paying attention to all the elements so that you really accomplish the results over time. And you are going to accomplish the results. It's not like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, but it does require engagement and, you know, making sure that this is a priority. Otherwise, it's always going to feel like this, again, catch-up game where it can be really frustrating.
Right. Cool. That was a great closure. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As always, we will publish the recording on our website as well in different distribution channels. I hope to see you soon again on the next webinar. And meanwhile, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to visit our website, constellationdata.com, and send us emails. Please reach out if you have any questions, any suggestions. So we would be happy to take those calls. All right. Have a wonderful
Thanks
day.
everyone for joining us today.
See you
Bye.
later. Bye.